is the sky's the limit. And today's show is all about using your imagination because, yes, as adults, it is okay to do that. And we've taken the whole concept of creating outdoor rooms beyond just throwing your blanket over a clothesline. We've also steered clear of any sort of commercial gazebo structures. Now, this first room that we're starting with here today is one of my favorite places to escape to. So if you have a place that you can kind of nestle down into the trees, hopefully this will inspire you to rearrange, renovate, and decorate. We like to call this area our thicket, and it was created off of the concept of really playing up your natural surroundings and using what nature provides for you. And the first thing you want to do when you're working in an area such as this is clear your space. You need to look and decide how much area you want to work with, and then you need to start clearing some of the trees, creating your boundaries, and then you're going to come back in and play up what's left behind. Now, these trees that we had in this particular space are evergreens, and this looks like what would be a very bad pruning job, but it's not. There's a reason behind why we have left some of these limbs protruding, and that is because it creates a ladder effect. The kids love to climb on it. It also makes a great way to hang different things. So this isn't a bad prune job. This is by design. That, once again, is about using your imagination and looking at things a little bit differently. Now, one of the branches we have left nice and long and at just the right height, because what we're going to do now is hang a window from it. We want to create the illusion of walls and dividers here and there to break up the space, and this is a perfect way to do that. You can still see through it, and windows generally have a little bit of weight to them, so you want to be sure that whatever you're hanging it from can withhold that weight. You also want to have a good hold on it so that it doesn't come crashing down on you. And I have found that a nice solid way to drill into these old windows and hang them for branches is to use, these are very small S-hooks, and what we did was bend it up in half. I already have a screw drilled in here. We're going to tighten that down, and then we're going to hang it from a chain. As we work our way around the space, you'll notice that we don't actually drill anything into the trees themselves. We use a lot of chain, a lot of wire, rope, because we don't want to hurt our trees. And we're fairly well protected down here, so we don't get any big gusts of wind either, which makes a difference. And I like using chain because, of course, your branches and everything are so uneven that you can really adjust your height to make sure everything is pretty level. And that creates a beautiful illusion of a wall. And we're going to work our way back here where we're going to create another illusion of kind of a fireplace that we have. And what we were using is one of these old headboards. This actually came off of a bed. I've had it for years, never knew what to do with it, and we decided to actually incorporate it into our room down here. Now, when you're adding furniture to a space like this, you have to keep in mind it is going to get weathered, it is going to get a little bit wore down, but that's okay. That adds to the charm of it. I don't care if this starts to warp and the paint starts to peel off of it. That'll just make it look better. Now, what we want to do is actually make it blend with the environment. We don't want it to look like I just stuck a headboard down here and I've got, you know, a junkyard getting started. So what we're going to do is take some of these branches that when we cleared our space, we hung on to, and I'm going to start weaving them around this headboard. Also going to incorporate a few that we had painted up. Give it a little bit of whimsy. So when you're clearing your space, you want to be sure to hang on to everything you're clearing because it'll probably come into play later on. And you can even actually screw pieces of your sticks into your structure to help hold things in place. And it'll give you something solid to lean some of your others on as well. And you'll just keep playing it up with other natural items, rocks, leaves. We'll throw in a touch of non-natural. And you have yourself an imaginary fireplace and a very unexpected surprise. And other unexpected surprises include flowing canopies and swinging tables. You want to be sure to scour your thrift stores and flea markets for unique items that you can leave outside and you don't care if they get weathered or rained on, and things that'll hold up pretty good. And old fold-up cots are the perfect source for lounging around. You can also take some of those branches that you pruned off of your trees, screw them together, and create some very primitive pieces of furniture. And you really want to utilize those branches to hang things from overhead. You'll also see a lot of metal pieces being used in our outdoor rooms. They had a completely different texture against the sticks and have a nice reflective property. The nice thing is you can leave them outside forever and they'll never rot. And old hanging vegetable baskets can be draped with beads and treated like tiered chandeliers, and bird cages make fabulous candle holders. And for the things that you do want to bring in at night or protect from the elements, try to incorporate some storage into your room. And I promise this is a fabulous way to enjoy the great outdoors, and it's an awesome exercise for your imagination. Oh, and don't forget the little ones too.
See how umbrellas, pallet boxes, and fabric can come together quite nicely.
When you set out to plant things up this year, it's time to start thinking outside the pot and come up with some other creative container ideas to show off your beautiful blooms. And some of our favorites include going out and purchasing some of these paint cans. They're very, very inexpensive. And when you're going to plant things in metal, you do need to be careful that you keep it well watered, because metal does retain the heat a little bit more for your plants. Be sure to give it good drainage by punching some holes in the bottom. I just like to use an awl and a hammer. And to give your paint can a little bit of a decorative touch like this, just take some of your favorite paint colors, and I just pour them right out of whatever container they're in. Kind of drizzle them down the side, and take like a toothpick or a skewer. I'm just going to kind of help things along a little bit. Then you just let that sit, dry, and you're ready to plant it up. Now when you plant into these containers, I always like to put a little layer of gravel in the bottom just to assist with drainage even further. And you're going to fill it the rest of the way with some good growing mix. Okay. Add your favorite blooms. Add your little hanger that comes with your can. And you have a very stylish version of a hanging basket. Another one of our favorites includes taking some of these old-fashioned Jello molds, and these are great because they have a circle already cut in the middle, so they're perfect for your patio tables. Now, before you plant up into these molds, once again, you want to be sure to go around with your awl and hammer some good drainage holes. Now, since this is such a shallow dish, I want to take advantage of getting as much soil in there as possible, so I'm not putting any rocks on the bottom of this container. And then you're ready to pot it up. And the plants that you want to put in this type of a container need to be plants that have very short root systems, and you're going to have to water this type of a container every day. I like to plant mine up with succulents. Some herbs grow well in here, and they're great to have right there at the table with you. And then once you get your container all planted up, to help hold your soil in place, I come back in and I will sprinkle my rocks around the top. It makes for a very fun container to have out on your patio. And another item we like to use to plant things up in are concrete blocks. They come in a variety of different shapes and sizes, and you can create a lot of different configurations with them as well. Now with these half blocks, these are just cinder blocks, you can actually create yourself a planter unit. Now the first thing we want to do is paint them up, and I like using paint that's suitable for exterior use. Of course, I use latex paints. I don't bother to prime the block first. I use a semi-gloss or a gloss paint because that's going to take away from the cement block look. and it really covers very nicely. You're going to want to paint on the inside as well as all the way around. And to create the unit that I have here behind us, I used 10 of these half blocks. And you're going to want to give your blocks about 2 coats of this paint. Let them dry thoroughly between coats. And what I like to do is on the bottom of the planter, we have the block turned so that this is treated kind of like a shelf. I'm going to go ahead and place this up here on the top. And you can build these as tall and as long as you like. Now what we want to do is, once again, I'm going to plant these up with some nice succulents. And I'm first going to fill, this is a pretty deep space, so I'm going to go ahead and fill about 1/4 of it with some of this gravel once again. I'm going to top that off with some of our potting soil, or good rich growing mix. Be sure to pack it down there nice. And your succulents will do very well in these. And if you live in an area where it kind of winters over, they winter over pretty good in these as well. I'm going to pack that in good around the roots. And then we're going to finish that off with some more of this white gravel. Then you want to water everything down good. Don't use your blasting hose, just a light watering, because you don't want all of your dirt to flow back out of your container. And then to finish this off, we took some larger rocks. You can paint these to whatever color you would like. We're sticking with the black and white theme here for this particular piece. We just placed a small pile. You could put little votive candles in here as well. So with just a few cinder blocks and very few dollars, you too can have an ultra cool modern planter.
How to make your garden sparkle with a few plant saucers, broken glass, and wine bottles is just ahead.
Here are the DIY.
Well, if your garden shed is anything like mine, the saucers to a lot of your pots tend to pile up. The pots break or crack, and then what to do with all of them? Well, how about flipping them on their side and creating some very fancy toadstools for your garden? It's a very simple project, minimal supplies. First thing you need to do is go out and select, of course, a saucer. And if you want to kind of save yourself any sort of frustration, start your first one. You should probably look for a saucer that has a very smooth edge on it with not a lot of lip. And to make it easy to work on, just prop it up on some sort of a can. And then basically what we're going to do is cover the bottom side of our saucer with some stained glass. Now you can buy this stuff already pre-cut, or you can just get yourself a glass cutter and cut them to whatever sizes you need. I like to start with some big pieces so you don't have to glue all day. And if you're somebody who's been afraid to work with glass because of using a glass cutter, it's a very easy tool to work with. And then what we're going to do is take our cut pieces and start gluing them right to the underside of our pot. I'm just going to use some sort of a contact adhesive. And you don't have to butt your pieces right next to each other. And then once you have your entire piece covered with glass, you're ready to grout. So I'm going to move to this piece I already have all glued up here. You can see you don't have to have the pot entirely covered. And now what I'm going to do is mix up. I'm starting with just a bright white unsanded grout. And I like working with the grout that I can mix up myself. We're only going to need a small amount. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to this to get the right consistency. And I like to mix mine to about a consistency of cake batter, kind of a good rule of thumb. And now we're going to do what all cartons of grout tell you not to do. We're going to add some paint to give it a tint of color. And I would imagine this probably breaks down the grout a little bit, adding the paint. So this is for decorative purposes, so pretty much anything goes. Now, I just apply it by putting a rubber glove on. I'm just going to cover my entire piece. And we're just going to fill in all the way around. Now I'm just going to come back in with a damp cloth here. Remove a lot of this excess. And you want to clean this up really good, let your grout set, and then you're going to come back in and we're going to add some necklaces and some of these little decorative gems. And this will finish it off. Use some of these Mardi Gras beads. Basically, we're going to wrap our necklace pieces around the outside of our pot. I'm going to use that same glue. Then you're going to want to come back in and build a little cluster of things right in the center. And I'm just going to use some more of these gems. And then once you have your cluster built up, you're going to let this all dry good and you're ready to install. And to install into the ground, very simple. We're going to use some of these, you can use old wine bottles, soda bottles. And we're going to fill them with some sand. And I'm just using regular play sand. And then you fill that all the way to the top. You're also going to need a piece of, this is conduit. You could use copper pipe. You could use anything that is going to fit inside the mouth of whatever type of a bottle you're using. And you want to be using a pipe that is hollow in the center. I'm going to put these right in my garden here. I'm going to dig a little bit of a hole, clear through my mulch. We're going to dig down into the dirt probably about 4 to 6 inches. So we don't want our bottle to be resting up on top of the surface. We want it to get embedded in there nicely. Now I'm going to take my piece of conduit. It's about 2 feet long, and you'll adjust your length to whatever type of a bottle that you use. Pound this down. Most of my pieces I cut to be about twice the length of whatever size bottle I was using. Now we're going to take our bottle and we're going to flip it right over our conduit, and it's going to slide on there very easily because part of the sand then is going to go actually inside the conduit and it's going to give you a really snug fit. There we go, a nice snug fit. I'm going to go back in, fill in around my hole. I'm going to go ahead and grab my piece here and set it on here. Another little bit of glue. I'm going to put a nice bead around the rim of our bottle. Make sure it doesn't get knocked off. And we're going to come back in. Center this over the top. And you have a toadstool fit for a prince. A little bit of time and you'll have these popping up all over your yard or garden.
For the skinny on today's show, visit DIYnetwork.com. Scrub up those leftover pots and saucers. We are building beautiful, beefy pedestals next.
Well, have you ever thought that sometimes a planter just doesn't want to be dirty anymore? So we're going to clean things up and take a planter and all of its parts and create something very grand, no dirt allowed, and we're going to actually create one of these beautiful pedestals. Now for this lovely creation, you're going to need an assortment of saucers and pots, and this particular one that we've built here uses 3 saucers of different sizes and then 1 smaller pot. And you have them all cleaned up good. And you're going to flip over your largest saucer, and then we're going to come back in with this smaller saucer, and we're going to take some more of our contact adhesive, run it around the lip of our saucer. But you want to have a nice tight fit. Now we're going to come back in with our pot, and this is going to sit right over the base of this particular saucer. And you can kind of come up with your own configurations after you play around with it a bit. Run a little bit more glue around there. You want to make sure everything's nicely centered. Now for the top, we're going to use this other size saucer, and we're going to place this right side up. I'm going to glue it right to the base of that pot. It's always a good idea to look all the way around it to make sure everything's centered. You're going to let your glue set up properly, and then we're going to come back in and prime the entire piece. And I like to use gesso to do this. This will seal the surface of your pots so the paint adheres nicely. And then after your gesso is dried good, you're ready to start painting. And what I like to do is take a combination of different shades of the same kind of color family, and then that helps give a little texture to your base. I'm gonna paint this one a real beautiful pink. And I just dip in all of them, start brushing. And just don't over blend it as you brush it on. Then once your paint is all cured, you're gonna wanna go over it with, I like to use a lacquer, and that gives it a nice shine. Once your lacquer dries, you're ready to put this pedestal into action. What I like to do is set a candle in the center, and then get some more of this white rock. I'm using a lot of that in today's show. And there you have just given those old dirty pots and saucers a whole new lease on life.
Plant things up in some 4-inch pipe and you'll set your blooms high. We'll show you how next.
Listen, your storyline.
Having all of your pots and plants all at ground level can get a bit boring to look at. So elevated planters are a big hit around here, and there are many different ways to go about hoisting those plants up into the air. And believe it or not, PVC pipe is a very useful material for creating some unique elevated planters. And the planter we're going to create here today is made out of this 4-inch PVC pipe. It comes in a variety of different diameters, but we're going to use the 4-inch for this particular planter. And to cut it down to the 12.5 inches that we're going to be working with here today, we just cut it using a miter box or a chop saw. It cuts very easily. We're going to actually drill 3 evenly spaced 3-inch holes in this pipe. So I first need to find my center. And to drill my holes, I'm going to use a hole saw bit. It's 3 inches in diameter. Now we have those 3 holes drilled. This is going to be the top of our container. Now what I want to do is drill a smaller hole in the bottom here. I have a 1-inch hole saw bit in my drill, and I'm going to drill right through here again. All right, now that hole is where we're going to attach our post. And before I plug up the ends, what I want to do is come back in with a little smaller drill bit and just drill a few drainage holes in here. Now I did all of these holes using my freehand drill, but if you want even more manageability, I'd recommend drilling all of your holes using a drill press. Okay, now what we want to do is plug up the ends of our PVC. And to do that, I'm just going to use a piece of scrap wood. It's about 1/2 inch thick here. And then to make sure that I have the right sized plugs for the end, I also, when I was cutting the length of my pipe, I cut a thin little piece of this 4-inch pipe to use as my template, and I'm going to trace inside. We're just going to cut this out using our bandsaw or a jigsaw, and you'll end up with round discs such as this, and we're just going to pound these right into the ends of our pipe. And I'm just going to take my rubber mallet, just gently pound that in. Okay. And if you want to reinforce that even further, you can add a little bit of silicone or some glue. And then your finished planter looks something like this. Now what we need to do is attach our post. And you can use either a piece of PVC, which is the right size, along with some of they have a variety of different fittings that will help you screw that in there nice and tight. Now for my post, I'm just going to use a piece of this is galvanized pipe, and I have the hole drilled so that it's a very tight fit. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to turn that onto the thread of my pipe. And at this point then you're ready to make it look a little bit prettier. Now to paint the PVC portion, I would recommend of course sanding away your edges to make them nice and smooth, just some regular sandpaper, and then spray painting it with a paint that is formulated for plastic. They have those available, or at least priming it with a plastic primer and then just spraying it with your regular sprays. Same for the metal pole. It gives a nice finish on these. It's very durable. And then you can take your decorative paints and jazz it up even further. You'll insert this into the ground, pot it up with your favorite growing mix and blooms, and you'll have a planter that will last you season after season. PVC planter, planting very creatively.
If you like what you see but want to know more, go to DIY Network.